This episode of the Beer Bound Podcast is brought to you by Rolling Hops Beer Tours.
Hey everybody, Garrett here from Rolling Hops, as always joined with my partner,
Andy.
We're here to tell you guys about our virtual craft beer tour offering. With what's going on in the world, unfortunately, we haven't been able to run our historical craft walking beer tour, so we've pivoted to taking the virtual experience of craft beer directly to you guys. Wonderful for team building events, corporate events, even just a night out or in, for that matter, with your friends and family. And we're doing this online.
Have any questions about the beer tours or want us to tailor make an event for you? Just shoot us an email or send us a message on any form of social media. Rolling Hops, you can find us everywhere.
RollingHopsBeerTours.com is where you can get a hold of us, and we'll see you guys soon.
Cheers.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Beer Bound Podcast. We're excited to be joined by Aaron Spinney, co-founder and head brewer of Merit Brewing. Merit Brewing is located in Canada's steeltown, Hamilton, Ontario. The brewery can be found in the city's growing downtown core on 107 James Street North. The brewery received its name through co-owner Tej Sandhu's family history. Before Merit represented the brewery, it was a furniture store in Nanaimo, British Columbia, founded by Tej's grandparents. They used Merit furniture as a way to facilitate the immigration of hundreds of people to Canada, and upon their arrival, employed, fed, housed, clothed, and supported them in their new life. Their work cemented the idea that the best businesses have a purpose. The staff of Merit Brewing recognize Hamilton for its merits. Moreover, for the heart and soul of the people and businesses that make Hamilton a special place to live and work. Merit Brewing sees Hamilton as a city driven by innovation in industry and art. So without further ado, we welcome Aaron to the Beer Bound Podcast. Hello, Aaron.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you for being here. Aaron, start us off. Who are you and what's your connection to beer?
Oh, man. Well, my name is Aaron Spinney. I'm the head brewer at Merit Brewing Company, downtown Hamilton here. We're a small brew pub that is turning 5 this spring, so that's pretty wild. And sheesh. I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, man, this is my 10th year working, but my 12th year in the industry. I started in 2010 at Niagara College. I was the first graduating class, or a part of the first graduating class, of that new program back then. It just seems like yesterday, but here we are today. I wouldn't be here without that start, which is pretty cool, I think. And I don't know, just brewed across Canada the last 10 years and started this place up in 2017. So here we are, kind of still surviving through all this fun stuff that we're dealing with. But it's things like this that kind of keep us going, like festivals and all the events and stuff are kind of the fun reward and social outlet that we used to have, and it quickly turned viral and online, and it's been a nice little relief for that. But kind of got off tangent as I usually do, but
that's great, Aaron. Yeah. Well, take us back. Okay, so 2010, you graduate from Niagara College, which is sort of Ontario and maybe Canada's premier brewing school. You were the first graduating class. So then afterwards, you went across Canada. You said, where did you get your actual brewing experience? Where did you go?
Yeah, I believe that it was, at the time, it was the first brewing program. There's a few more now, but there used to be like a private school in Montreal, apparently, that you could go to and brew at in the 90s and 80s, but I don't know. Anyways, when I started at Niagara College, I'm from Niagara myself, and so it was kind of like just a hop, skip, and a jump to join that program and start learning this fun little thing we call beer. From there, I went to Garrison in Halifax. I did my internship there and kind of got my feet wet while like doing everything, and just like got thrown to the fire and see how it goes, And from there, I went to Flying Monkeys. I was at Flying Monkeys for just under a year before I switched to Sawdust City. And I was the first employee at Sawdust City, along with being the head brewer there, kind of managing. At the time, we were a contract brewery out of Black Oak and Etobicoke, and I kind of managed all the Toronto stuff. I would brew, package, and deliver, kind of doing everything other than like a little bit of sales here and there, but not too much, and events. So it was kind of a 3-person team at that point, and that company's grown quite substantially. From there, I did some consulting work in brewing and some like kombucha and other like fermented beverages, and worked at Vessel, which is now Sessions Canning, a mobile canning company. So we did that while we were still working on Merit. And then, finally opened up Merit in 2017. We started working on it in 2014, just kind of as a concept and a idea, and then started getting the numbers rolling and having accounting meetings and going from there, finding the funding, and building the brewery from there. So it took us 3 years to build Merit, from the first concept like April 2014 to opening the doors in May 2017.
Cool.
And here I've been here ever since, back in Hamilton.
Haven't looked back.
Here I am getting rusty, just like the city, I guess. But and I'm from Niagara, so I'm not from far away. Most of my family doesn't live there anymore, but I went to school here before at Mohawk College for marketing. And while I was there, my buddies were at McMaster, and that's how I met Tej, through my buddies from high school. They like lived, I think, 2 or 3 of them lived on his floor, or they all lived together on the same floor in like the first year university. And then we just met from there. And then years later, he kind of developed a love for food and drink, and we started working on this.
Love of beer, bringing everyone together to build breweries.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, Aaron, why Hamilton as a location? You're from Niagara. Why did you pick the quote rusty city of Hamilton?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the fastest growing cities in Canada at the moment. And mind you, like, back then we were aware of that, but it wasn't really a choice. It was kind of just like a decision we made, first off, essentially because we both love the city, and we thought, like, at the time we were both living in Toronto, and we already saw at that point in like 2014, 2013 that like things were saturated, within like 2 years of, say, Bellwoods and Indy opening up, things just exploded, right? Everyone wanted it on that game, and there was no way that we were going to afford Toronto, but really that wasn't even our thought. We loved Hamilton. We both fell in love with it when we were going to school here for 4 years. And then, I took 4 years in marketing college because, I was like 18, didn't know what the hell I wanted to do, so I was like, well, I'll just drink and stuff, and maybe that happened. But it worked out that my last year at Mohawk was the starting of the brewing program. So I applied to the brewing program while in the marketing program. But we just fell in love with the city at the time. Like, it was kind of an up and coming thing. It was, full of music, full of art, and kind of undiscovered. And we loved it. I didn't really realize I loved it so much until I went to Halifax to work there. I've been to Halifax a lot, but not to live and like work for an internship. And while I was there, I realized like the similarities to Hamilton with the community, the sense of community, and like the support, the friendliness, believe it or not, like everyone out there is salty and everyone here is rusty. But like, if you know the town and the people, like everyone's friendly as fuck. Like you can walk down the street with headphones in, sunglasses, a hat, and a hoodie on, and people are still going to say hello to you. You know, it's a friendly place. Like it's a big city, like every other. There's got its problems, but for the most part, it's the community and the support that allows small businesses to thrive, I think, or at least survive at this point. And yeah, that was kind of it. I think, you know, we really wanted to grow with a city that was growing, and we've done that.
It's great. I'm a little biased in loving Hamilton as well, born and raised myself. So
Dope.
Do you like Hamilton, Garrett?
yeah, it's all right. It's definitely holds a place in my heart, and well, I guess you'd call me a mountain boy. I grew up on the mountain, so it's a little different, and maybe there's their own little rivalry between Hamiltonians of those who live on the mountain and below. But in any case, yeah, I totally get what you're saying with the sense of community. You know, it doesn't matter, you go uptown, you go downtown, you're really going to get for the most part the same experience. So
yeah,
nice
I think too, like, you know, the city went through its recession and lost a lot of stuff, and everyone kind of either banded together or just lost everything. And I think the idea was like, after that all happened, it was like, well, we survived, we're still here. You know, it kind of toughens people up, and like you do get that, right? Like there's a lot of pushback to change and growth in the city, which is inevitable because I mean Toronto's overflowing, so it doesn't really matter what anyone wants. But I think like there's still reluctancy to growth and change. Like think about just even the LRT argument that's been going on for like 15 years. You know, like the Skyrail in Vancouver was technically supposed to be our LRT system, you know, and they're still talking about building it with all the funding that the federal government wants to give them, but they're still not doing it. Like it's weird. It's reluctancy to change, but it's still that like, you know, we survived Steeltown Tiger Cat eat 'em raw spirit, I guess. I don't know. I just live here. I love it.
That's a good way to put it. I like the eat 'em raw spirit.
Yeah.
I currently live in the East End, so I feel like we got a lot of that over in the East End. Mind you, it's kind of a terrible year for the Tide Cats getting all the way to the Grey Cup and then dropping the ball.
And everyone that I went with, we all got COVID, so that was a dumb mistake. So you know,
oh no,
yeah. We lost, and we lost on Christmas because everyone got COVID.
Yeah, Ticats could have made that a little better. Anyways, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, yeah,
that's good. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the beer naturally. So you're the head brewer over at Merit Brewing. You know, I've checked out a few of the beers that you have online. I've been to Merit a few times myself. It's all wonderful stuff, but you know, being the head brewer, what is it that you start to think about before you go to make, you know, a new brew?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like coming up on 5 years, you know, the ideas and recipes evolve and change, and also like reoccur. So I think at the beginning, you know, let's even like a year before COVID, it was like every brew was a brand new brew. I kind of got to just like throw a dart at the wall and say like, this is what I'm making now. It was kind of based on like what we liked, what we saw, and also what was kind of trending in the international community. I feel we have 10 taps in-house when we are open to the public, and we do have a retail store, of course, which we try and manage like 8 to 10 brands in there as well. Ideally coinciding with the tap room, just because, you know, once you try it, ideally you'd like to buy it, or we hope you do anyways, to take it home. And yeah, it was kind of a blend. Like we were like, okay, 10 taps, like what can I paint, I guess, you know? And at the time we wanted a mix. You know, we know, in my opinion, IPAs are kind of like the Caesar salad of a menu. You know, if it's not good, the rest of the menu is probably going to suck as well. You know, like if you can't make a flagship beer that's also hype but has been around for long enough that it's not going anywhere, might as well give in, you know, just brew something juicy. If you can't do that, then like that's kind of an issue, I feel. And then from there you kind of expand out. But for us, COVID's really allowed us to step back and ask ourselves, like, what do we want to be known for? As a brew pub, it was really easy just to kind of like fill the menu and create different styles. I enjoy brewing a lot of different things, and a lot of tradition comes from it. I like I like history, I like tradition, but I like to make my own recipes. I like to tweak things. I like to look at things and either recreate them, deconstruct them, or try and just think outside the box, or use something that, you know, hasn't been used in the way, or hasn't been used in the way other people are using it. I know that's very broad and kind of confusing, but that's kind of the inner workings of my brain. However, through COVID, we've allowed ourselves to really wash away the confusion and say, like, we really want to be known for IPAs, fruited sours, you know, all these hype things, stouts. It's something that stouts are a big one for me. I really enjoy brewing them. I do like drinking them, like if they're sessionable, but working with Sam at Soda City, like we crushed imperial stouts. Like we were known to like hide booze and make things smooth, you know, and that's what I carried on here, was like high alcohol imperial stouts, pastry stouts, things like that aren't gonna, you know, you're not gonna grab a 6-pack of, but when you try it, you're like, shit, I should have bought like 3 of them at least. And they're a great learning tool as well from a brewing perspective. You know, you can brew a really light lager, or like something like we make a 3% table beer that's been a flagship since day one. You brew that as a brewer, you can't really see how messy you're being, but like you take a dark liquid stout, and while you're brewing and you're splashing around, you can really look around the room and see, like, man, I'm making a mess. I got to clean this up, you know? So like, it's a great training tool as well. So
point.
stouts, traditional styles. So lagers, everyone loves drinking lagers. We like making them. We like trying traditional historical brews. Oddly enough, I think a lot of people will laugh, but I started to really enjoy like English styles and more malty things, stuff like that, traditional stuff. Because, you know, if you're not going to respect where you came from, you might not learn as much moving forward as well. And then
Absolutely.
our last one, and one of my favorite ones, not like, you know, you don't want to drink them every day, but my favorite styles right now are the wine hybrids, which are something that we're really proud of. Kind of started out of necessity, and in the idea of Merit was more than just beer, more than just sausage. We wanted to ferment things completely, like pickled goods, and we also really wanted to use a lot of produce and, you know, grapes, I guess, at this point, from Niagara. You know, it's like one of the best growing regions in the world. It's got some of the best soil, and the wine is really kind of growing as we speak. Like every year, it's getting better. Every year, they overcome, you know, circumstances that are changing with their environment and really putting themselves on the map. I think Niagara wine is fantastic, and we really want to showcase that, being on the forefront, or the doorstep of Niagara, kind of coming through Hamilton.
Yeah, well, that's great. I love it. That's a perfect answer. I want to dissect that a little bit. First of all, when you mentioned, you know, the stouts, and when you said, you know, you usually don't drink it every day, or you buy one and you taste it and you realize you should have had more. I had that exact experience at Merit. Actually, more so my wife, because we bought, I think it was called Bark at the Moon. It was a collab day with Third Moon Brewing, if I recall.
Yeah.
It was absolutely delicious, and my wife, big stout fan, and she drank and she's like, well, how many more of these did you buy? And I was like, I just got the one. She's like, what? We need to go back right now.
That's awesome.
To get more, which is great. We eventually did go back and grab a couple more. Quick question: is that one ever going to be brewed again? Because I think my wife would punch me if I didn't ask.
Oh man!
If it ever is, you have to keep us posted. But yeah, no, that's great. And just looking at the menu you guys have on the website, and like you mentioned, you said just fermenting things. I saw, I guess that'll play into some of the, you know, I think you had like dill carrots and pickled cauliflower and things like that. So is that all sort of that branch of what you're talking about?
Yeah. It's coined them as shareables. So it kind of started as like a pickled goods charcuterie board. You know, we weren't really going to get into like salamis and stuff, and our big thing was sausage, right? So cheese kind of made sense, and pickled goods. One of our partners, Jesse, in Toronto, was a big fan of fermented things and pickled goods, and the chef that we have here Sean McKinnon. He's actually my roommate. He's upstairs right now, not fermenting foods, but he loved it too. He was really into it, and I started like just talking to him. We hang out all the time, so it was just like easy to just shoot the shit about fermentation and start teaching that way. It can be really confusing, but at the same time, like, it's been done for thousands of years. It shouldn't be that hard. It's easy, but when you really want to break it down, it can get really confusing, but it's basic. The basics are really simple, I guess. So yeah, we do a lot of seasonal veg. We've got the farmers market across the street that we dabble with quite a lot as well, just like dealing with seasonal farms in Niagara. We've got a lot of buddies that have taken over their family property and continue to grow. A lot of them are like 8-9 generations. Sean's cousins are the Bartletts, which actually have like a street named after them. And I don't know, it might be the pair as well, but they're like 10th generation apple farmers. And they're also like crazy agricultural chair board members. And like, it's nuts. So like these people are just like not only family, but buddies. And we get to work with them now, which is really cool. So the pickled goods really make sense. Like we say, we make everything but the buns, because we're surrounded by a really old Italian and Portuguese neighborhood, right? So we use a lot of the local bakeries here to support what we're doing as well. So it's showcasing also the neighborhood, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, great neighborhood for that. Good bakeries all in and around there.
Right.
That's absolutely, yeah. Gone there for pastries a few times. James Street North in itself is just so vibrant and has so many different takes on different cultures and different. Even if you're going for just food, you can find a whole handful of different things.
It's awesome.
Yeah, no shortage of choice. It's great. I do want to touch on the sausage, because it's a big thing. When I think Merit, I think beer and sausage, and I'm assuming it's done that way on purpose. So why was sausage a thing that was kind of put to the forefront? And I guess other breweries and brew pubs do burgers and maybe pierogies or something else, but why was it sausage?
Yeah, so while we were kind of designing and thinking of everything, we'd wake up at 3 a.m. with an idea, or it just becomes a nuisance at a certain point. But the idea was to think of everything, and we really wanted, which we did not. That's one thing you fucking learn, is like, you don't know anything when you're opening a business or a brewery, even though you worked at one a few times, like, holy shit. But we wanted to really try and pretend like we thought of everything. And the idea behind it was like to be different, right? We really liked the verse concept in Toronto, but we didn't really want to model or like copycat that, knowing that, Toronto and Hamilton, especially at the time, had quite a rivalry, and it still does, of course, but we did not want to come into the city being like, oh, those guys, fuck them, they're from Toronto. We're like, whoa, no, that is not the case. But also our partner, Jesse Valens, he was the head chef at the time at, oh man, I forget where he was. Maybe the Ossington, I think. I don't know. It was a duck featured menu. And then he went to Maple Leaf Tavern, and now he's at Barbarian Steakhouse in Toronto. And he was winning sausage competitions at the time. He was like 5 or 6 time champion of Sausage King of Toronto for like, I don't know, 5 out of 7 years or something like that. And he was doing some cool stuff like pastrami, corned beef pastrami with like Thousand Island like dressing, and it's so good. And we were like, that we want to do something like that. Originally we were talking with Kaplansky, the deli, and we were like, ooh, deli sandwiches. Like, we knew going into it that running a brewery is hard enough, that if you try and open a restaurant, like, you're an idiot. And you're still an idiot, because it's hard. Like, it's so hard, it's 2 businesses. And the idea behind like a brew pub restaurant is that, like, if you break even, that's technically considered success, because ideally most of the money is coming from the brewery if you're busy enough. If you can get people in the seats, you're the bakery making the bread. It's a lot easier to do that than like kitchen overhead and kitchen costs and building a kitchen. And this was a brand new build. luckily our landlords are buddies of ours, but we also like got to customize everything, and we chose everything from the handles on every door to the toilet seats and everything. So it was really difficult, but sausage was all once we kind of like narrowed out Kaplansky and started working with Jesse and talking with them, we knew that we wanted sausage to be the platform. And we didn't want to be a sausage like a German style beer hall. We wanted to use sausage to showcase international flavors. And I think that's where it was to like the beers. It's something that's familiar, but we want to blow your mind, and we want to like change your perception of something that might be boring. You know, who cares? Sausage on a bun, like you're either at Italian barbecue or or you're just like bored. You know, it's Wednesday night and you gotta eat fast. Like I don't know, sausages can be boring if
Or the cart
you want
outside
them
or
to
something.
be. You know. Yeah, I don't know that. Yeah, and then I don't know. Like, I smoke a lot of weed, so I was like, yeah, sausages sounds good. Like, let's just come up with these concepts. So at that point in time, we were always coming up with really neat ideas. And the original 3 ideas. One was the butter chicken sausage, which we have on the menu. It's served on a naan bread with chutney, and it's all the Indian inspired dishes are recipes from Tej's grandmother, I believe. Yeah, Tej's grandma, which is pretty cool. And then the other one was chicken and waffles, which we still haven't done. So like served on a waffle bun or just like wrapped in a waffle, but chicken, like you make the chicken sausage, marinate it, and then batter it, and then fry it like you would fried chicken.
Oh, that sounds
And we
great.
haven't done that yet. And then my other idea, which probably will never happen because we don't do seafood. We don't want to like bring that in as a contamination, but
Oh, I see.
was like a poached lobster roll, but in sausage form. And then cut it open, and you got like essentially a sausage roll or a lobster roll. But yeah, that's kind of where it started. That was like the idea, I guess, was like something familiar but something new.
Yeah, a nice twist on a classic sort of meal. Yeah, that's good. I can attest they're all delicious. Every time I go in, I gotta like stop myself from getting another one. Stop myself. Usually my wife's like, do you need another sausage? Like need, no, want. Yes. But
I mean, we always got those 4-packs to go, you know?
I know. I saw those. Definitely gonna have to grab another.
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those things like one of my best friends is Jeff Broders from Indie Ale House, and I would always go hang out. I always called myself the unofficial employee of Indie Ale House because I'd always be there helping out and like moving stuff and like, oh, if they had to grain out or like move grain. It was a physical job, a physical brewery at the time, like a lot of just lifting. So I was like always having beers at the bar. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll help you. Like, let's go. And it always worked out that they were like, oh, you're like the only person that doesn't get paid here. And I was just happy to do it. But we don't, you know, you're gonna get some food once in a while. I'm like, yeah, let's go to Indy. We're gonna go eat at Indy. And Jeff's like, man, I can't eat there. Like, you know, that's where I live. I just can't. We got to go somewhere else, man. And every time I'm like, come on, like it's Indie Ale House, the fried chicken, like I don't know what I want to eat. He's like, nah, man, let's just go somewhere else. And now I'm like, I get it. Like, I don't think other than like sampling like a piece of sausage that's brand new, and like Mick comes down the hallway, he's like, yo, you gotta try this. I'm like, all right, let's do it. That's as far as it goes. I really like. You know, you smell it all the time and you're always around it. You're like, just can't do it. But the beer, that's easy to drink all the time. It's the smell of like sausage and smoke, you know, it kind of gets to you after a while. It's always the same, you know?
Yeah, but you're constantly around it. And yeah, I can totally see that.
But it's dope. It's good. And I'll eat the French fries any day.
Love it. Aaron, can I ask you about your education at Niagara? First of all, do you know Chris Freeman?
Yeah, he was in my graduating class. Yeah. Cliff Collingwood, right? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. We interviewed him maybe a month ago.
A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, he was shooting off all the prestigious names from the initial graduating class. It was pretty impressive. I think he mentioned you.
Yeah, I don't know. He was like 38 and I was like 22, you know. we were in different levels, I guess, but
Yeah.
no, he's a good dude. I really respect Chris. You know, he's always been like a very traditional brewer and makes like really good beers in that sense. And yeah, he's a great dad, great cool guy, like just an awesome dude.
Yeah. What do you think about, do you think that your experience at Niagara, do you think that really, how, I guess, how did it help you in your craft? Would you recommend, if someone is young, looking into their post-secondary education, they like beer, they are maybe interested in pursuing this as a career, do you think that taking a course like what they offer at Niagara or something similar, do you think that's necessary? Are you an advocate of kind of formal education in that way? Or do you think maybe you can kind of learn the skills on your own, or maybe through home brewing?
Yeah, that's like, I guess it's an evolving question, but it's really changed over time. I think like being a part of that system and like going through it, I'm grateful that I had the opportunity. When we went through it as a class, it was brand new. It wasn't like we were, day one, they kind of sat us down in orientation, was like, we're really excited. We're not prepared, but you guys are guinea pigs. But as long as you like get through this with us, you'll get a job. Like that was literally, I think, verbatim what they said to us.
It's a hell of an introductory speech.
Yeah, we're all idiots, but fucking welcome to it. And yeah, like when we started, I remember dates really well, which is just a strange thing. But when we started, there was no brew house. We didn't have a brewery until November 17th was the first brew. So we had like a month and a half approximately for like nothing. So we had practical brewing classes and we ended up just going on field trips, which was kind of cool. We saw a lot of shit. Our favorite tour, I think, was the Box Factory, which was really cool. And we all just made Simpsons jokes forever.
Yeah, that sounds like a.
But it was awesome because those guys, like those people, knew that they are looking at 24 future customers, and guess what? We buy from them all the time, so it worked. But yeah, no, like it's one avenue. I get this question a lot. I get this question all the time because as I get older in this industry, like I realize that being an advocate for it and like kind of hopefully a coach and like a bit of a mentor to some people to like steer them in the right direction. This is still a very interesting Wild West industry that has no regulations, has no standardization in terms of safety, in terms of payment, in terms of like treatment of human beings, right? So we're seeing a lot of change that's still going to take a long time, but we are kind of still paving a way. I think like you can still get into the industry any way you'd like, and essentially it's a pay to play system with minor barriers to entry other than government permits and paperwork. If you're willing to or know how to do the paperwork, along with having the funding, anyone can open a brewery, which to people like myself and other professionals, I find that mildly offensive because a lot of people think of it as a part-time job or a weekend warrior kind of thing. And I'm like, I've dedicated 10 years plus to my life. And like from day one at brewing school, I knew that this is what I was going to do. And I wanted to be one of the best, like I kept pushing and I still do every day. I think from a culinary perspective as well. So I think like you have to have that edge, but I believe that it's still the Wild West, and that's okay because that still invites innovation and ideas from other industries as well. However, the school is only one avenue and it's saturated. It's really heavily applied. I believe they only allow like 1/3 or one or less, I don't know, like local Ontario population. The rest is out of country and out of province, which is great because obviously this area is saturated already, but you can always find a job usually with the amount of breweries opening up constantly. But on top of that, and first and foremost, Niagara College is like a bureaucracy, right? So they want to make money And being from Welland, where Niagara College, one of the larger campuses is for Niagara College, is their ESL program. They make so much money off of people wanting to come and learn English, right, from different countries. And we're subsidized as Ontarians and as Canadians to have a cheaper education rate, which is still expensive. But friends of mine that went to the program were coming from out of country and spent like $20,000 where we spent 3 or 4. Now it's like 6 or 7,000 grand, I think, to like get in as a Canadian. But if you're coming from the States or Korea or anywhere else, anywhere, you're looking at like $20,000-$30,000, and they like their money, right? So that it's a jaded system. I think it could have evolved, and it didn't. I think they went on to the next thing, which was cannabis, and they're looking to kind of just grow that cohort of like culinary food and wine and beer now. Like when we first got into the program, they just designed the Canadian Food and Wine Institute logo, and they were like, "Now it costs too much money, so we're just going to leave beer out." And like it still is left out. Like it's a weird system. They've sold the curriculum to other colleges as well. I believe Olds College in Alberta has the same curriculum, and it's taught by homebrewers. So that's fine. But at what level, like, do you expect to graduate and open your own brewery? You can't go do that with trades. Go be an electrician if your dad taught you. You can't do it. It doesn't matter. There's regulations, right? And I find that like slightly insulting. And homebrewers are fantastic, and the quality of technology and equipment and everything like that is going up. But cooking on the weekend in your kitchen at home doesn't mean you can run a restaurant, right? So there's still a lot of upscaling and safety and sanitation and industrialization of like your homebrew kit to a factory, and making one batch every few weeks is not the same as brewing one batch ideally every couple days and managing 20 other tanks. Like there's a lot to go on, plus ordering, plus purchasing. But yeah, there's so many ways to get into the industry. I think like I've had buddies that have volunteered for months at breweries just to try and get a job, and finally they did, and they're killing it. Some of them own companies now, and they work from the bottom, but they knew what they had to do. But yeah, I don't know. Long story short, it's one great avenue. It's growing. It's evolving. It's been 12 years since I started. But the difference as well is that like the first 2 years allowed an internship. They didn't demand it. It was just recommended that we got jobs in the summertime. After that, they stopped it because too many people were getting hired and not going back to the program. So what they did was they turned it into a 3 cohort start a year. So there's like a September, a January, and like a June start. And you go for 18 months straight. And then you graduate as a brewmaster with minimal experience, hands-on, because now there's 18 times 3 starts a year. You're looking at like maybe a day a week in the brewery, and you might be washing kegs for a month, so the danger is there. There's no internship, there's no apprenticeship, there's no hands-on learning, and you're graduating as a brewmaster, which is literally just the piece of paper. It's essentially a certified brewer degree that's recognized on a semi-international scale, because it has a practical component to it. But you're not a brewmaster. But all these people that are opening up breweries need a brewmaster, and they hire right out of school. What are you going to do? Learn on the job or make good beer? Like it's hard. You can't do both. And unfortunately, a lot of people get hired right out of the program thinking they're going to be the king shit. But then also the reality of it hits you, and then the demands of accounting and sales and marketing start to hit you too, and it's like, oh fuck, I don't know how to do this. Like it's a lot to juggle. It's an apprenticeship. You should go learn somewhere for 5 to 10 years, no problem.
Good, interesting perspective on it. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that go into running any business, right? And obviously a brewery has its own nuances that you have to take care of.
Yeah, we get a lot of the Niagara College program coming in for like graduating classes and stuff. And I tell them all every time, don't go out and get my job. Like go out and learn from someone, get hired and eat shit. Like not eat shit, but like take shit, like sweep the
Yeah.
floors. When you think 8 hours is enough,
Yeah.
spend 5 more sweeping like cleaning the drains.
Yeah.
It can be militant, it can be regimented, but it's passionate, like when we were at Flying Monkeys, we would stay and just hang out after our shift working with the next brewer, and we'd be there for like 16 hours, no problem, and then go home and drink and then come back and be like, yeah, this is fun. Like it's still a job, but
Mhm.
the level of passion the level of passion can't be met. But just like hamburgers, there's room for McDonald's and there's room for artisanal smash burgers, there's always going to be the $25 hamburger, but you can also go get a $2 hamburger down the road. There's enough room for everyone. And whatever level of passion or whatever level of interest has brought you to brewing, whether it's mathematics, science, the artistic side, the creativity, or like, the scientific side, there's different reasons for it. But passion levels, I think, really distinguish the creativity of certain breweries.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's the whole debate about higher education, I think, is exactly what you said. It obviously, I don't know if having the brewmaster certificate, like you mentioned, that doesn't make a good brewer, but it's probably a good idea to maybe have 18 months of some formal education before you even start your apprenticeship, essentially, of what you would advocate for. But then there isn't any formal regulation or a body saying you really you need any formal training to be a brewer. So that's kind of strange. So yeah, it's kind of a weird, do you see that will ever get to that point? You kind of mentioned that we're still in the wild, wild west. Like, do you think maybe take the province of Ontario will ever, whatever body it would be, would legislate that, oh, you need to be an official brewmaster to work at a brewery? Do you see that maybe on the horizon, or maybe not?
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like get so like raw about this whole system. Like it's a great way to get in. Like here I am sitting in front of you because of that brewing program. But we knew what we weren't getting, and we all banded together as a class and like jumped off the cliff together. We held each other's hands and taught each other and pushed each other for creativity. And that's, I think, why most of us are running our own places now. Mind you, also time is still a factor, like you just continuously grow in this industry. But man, yeah, it's changing. It's definitely changing. Like obviously we're seeing a lot through this whole pandemic with equality and diversity and a lot of growth on that aspect, and that's like one of the most wonderful things in terms of workers' rights and workers' like freedoms and all that stuff, and like standardization of safety and wages. Like I'm not saying like no one should do this. Like it's a lovely, fun job, and everyone gets into it for their own reason. But people don't need to be walked all over. Since one of my first jobs, one of my first placements, the brewery owner continuously like told me how he needed a new car, but I had holes in my shoes and I couldn't cross the brewery without getting my socks wet, and he'd literally tell us that we were starving artists. And I was like, man, well, that's like, you're perpetuating that. That's your fault. And as now like a partner in a company, we don't want to perpetuate that. We don't want to continue that norm. We don't want to keep that out. And like, that sucks. That's so shitty that has to happen. There's a new, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but online there's a brewers workers thing that started up, mostly started by brewery workers and or like just industry workers that have had a bad time or just had their own opinions on the industry. And it's starting out as like a questionnaire for employees, whether you're a bartender or a brewer worker. Like you can have honest honest questions and answers of this. And what they're going to start doing is like fighting for equality, fighting for diversity, and ideally for starting to fight, once they get enough people, for standardization of wages and safety and like treatment of human beings. So yeah, we're starting to see change. It's going to take a long time, of course, too. Like, we started to see a lot of grants and bursaries starting to happen in the industry from a government standpoint. Maybe, I mean, it's always been there, but now it's popular, right? There's a lot more money going into the industry from the government, and when that happens, obviously the government wants to start watching, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when that starts to happen, ideally safety starts to get put into place, and protocols and equipment checks. Fines can be given to you for not following safe practice, right? So they can shut you, like the government can shut you down if your equipment's broken, but not here, not in this industry. We get health checks all day long in the kitchen, and that's where it stops. No one comes into the brewery because they're like, oh God, those tanks are big, and they all call them vats because they don't know what they're called. Like, look at those vats, they're so big. Do I have to go in there? Like inspectors of the city, like, do I have to go in there? Like, no, you don't. Like, you could eat off the floor if you want to, but like, it's clean, but you don't even know what you're looking at, so don't worry about it. Like, there's no, other than like health inspections or like safety audits once in a while, it's very rare, and it usually happens once someone locally gets hurt. That's the problem. It's all hindsight stuff. There's no foresight in it. So hopefully over time, yeah, like as more funding and grants and bursaries be given to these breweries to become more and more professional, ideally there's more and more standardization of safety and all that stuff.
It's a good point. I don't think we've ever even touched on that topic, because like it's not, we typically talk about, obviously beer and initiatives from breweries and things like that, but it's not a
fun topic,
No, it's not, but it's definitely one that needs to be talked about. It's maybe that's even part of the issue. Like it's doesn't come to light, right?
Yeah, well, you even got to think like you see it more in the American side of things with like alcoholism and stuff in just like the service industry, right? But here in Canada, it's not really talked about much. Like, how much drinking is going on as a bartender, bar manager, or even like hell as a brewer, anyone that works in the industry, right? Coming in hungover, fuck, what you might do is grab a pint of beer before you start working. Like we were all young once, but like that's not safe. You know what I mean? And it's just not discussed. It's not considered a hazard. It is once it's gone too far. But the problem is like there's not many places doing the awareness. There's not many people shedding the light on it, and it's a lot of hard work and it's a lot of tough work. It's essentially like industry therapy, if you will. You got to face it, but at the same time, it's not fun. So no one really wants to talk about it, but people have been treated like shit, and it's just kind of become the norm. Like alcohol and beer was like part of the salary. You got paid less because you got free low fills and you got to go to events, and like, guess what? You should be paid for events. Low fills just happen and they're waste anyways. Like it's not part of the payment plan. Low fills and events don't pay the bills. You know what I mean? Like there still needs to be that standardization of equal pay for equal work, essentially. And those low fills and all those, perks of the job can become a burden once you start to rely on that. Like your LCBO bill starts to go down when you work at a brewery, but your consumption might go up. Like that can be a problem. And that should be addressed. That should be something that should be talked about openly in not only industry conferences, but just made aware, like to everyone.
True. Just out of curiosity, low fill, I'm gonna sort of assume what that is, like the end of a keg in the last little bit. Is that correct?
Yeah, sometimes it also, like what I'm referring to is like bottles or cans coming off the line. A lot of times when you're starting up the machine, you can get high fills or low fills, so you're not going to get correct volume in the can and or bottle. And if the beer liquid's too low in the vessel, the idea is that it could oxidize or lose its carbonation, and it's just not fit for consumption to the general public. But most brewers will drink whatever, so
Yeah, sure.
Half a
Some of
can's
the
pretty
line.
good, you know. But yeah, low fills are just like cans that don't weigh enough usually, or bottles.
I see. Interesting. Cool.
Interesting. Yes. Aaron, can I ask you a little bit? You're a very passionate guy, particularly with your craft, and it seems like it's really resonated. Like you mentioned, I think 2010 was the first year for Niagara. That's when you graduated.
2010. Yeah.
Yeah, so 12 years ago, and you still seem to be as passionate as ever on the industry that you're a part of and that you've chosen to devote your career towards. How can you tell us a little bit about that passion? Like, where did that start? Are you just a passionate guy by nature? Is it all geared towards beer? I mean, it's funny because you're the fabricator, the creator of the actual product, but you're also behind the scenes in management as well. Like you mentioned, lots of people, I mean, you can be good at a craft, but that doesn't mean you should run the enterprise. But you've kind of decided that you want to take both fronts of being the creator, but also having the administrative role as well. Can you tell us about that passion and how it's sort of maintained itself? Maybe it hasn't, maybe you're less passionate now. Tell us about your passion.
Yeah, I think it's like anything, you know, you spend too long on the tour bus, it's not as exciting anymore, but you know, I love it. I love it so much. It for a long time, it consumed me. It made me, I thought it was my image, you know, and then once you realize it's not, you're kind of left with a void, and you start to fill it, but or you don't. I don't know, maybe, whatever you do. But like for me, I was like, man, like I'm more than just a brewer, you know. But I just like making things. I love working with my hands. I was raised by two entrepreneurs. My mom and dad just have always run their own businesses. You know, they always hated working for people, and that was kind of always my dream, and still is. You know, when you open your own business, you kind of like always kick yourself and question all your managing and all that stuff, and like it's like driving. You know, everyone thinks they're a good driver, but everyone thinks they're a good manager too. But it's not so true. You know. And you got to learn, you got to work at it, and it's a constant thing. And that's something that, like, even into 5 years, I'm still just realizing that. But, oh man, like, yeah, it started like, so I'm gonna say, like, they were two entrepreneurs, so they always ran their own companies around me, and I always thought that was really cool. So it just seemed normal, I guess. But one of my most early memories is watching my mom make eggs for me in the morning, and I always was like very like specific on what kind of egg I wanted to eat in the morning. And I remember when I was like big enough, I could, you know, grab a chair and watch her make these eggs on the stove. And after a while, I just wanted to keep recreating that, trying to make it like, how did she do that? How do you make it better? How do you recreate that? And then you keep learning, you know, like when I was like 7 or 8 years old for Christmas, I'd get cookbooks like from Emeril Lagasse and shit. Like I was obsessed with like, Walk with Chan, if you remember that culinary gem from CBC with the Chinese man named Walk with Yan. Yeah, Yan. He was dope. He had like 600 episodes. He was one of the most successful culinary shows ever that like America tried to recreate it, and I think they only got to like 180 episodes. But this guy, if you watch them on YouTube, man, he looks so stoned, and he's like, yeah, just having a good time, chopping up raw shrimp and then like cutting up his vegetables. He's like, man, that's not safe. But like as an 8-year-old, I was like, that's fucking sweet. And like squally, like I just love culinary stuff.
Chop.
I love it. Like we had a snow day on Monday. I cooked like 3 dishes. I was like, I'm bored. My girlfriend had to work, so I'm like, I'm gonna cook all day long, and then you got to eat all of it. So sorry, we're gonna fall asleep really early. But yeah, culinary was my main passion and still is, I think. Cooking is just like, I love cooking shows. I just love food. Like you get, you know, just watching food being made is just so magical. And then you eat it and you're like, fuck, that's so good. So food really got me into it. I always loved it. One of my things from childhood that never changed was I always wanted to run a restaurant. That was the one thing. People want to be fire people and cops or whatever you want to be as you grow older. It was always like run a restaurant. And I just loved it. And that was kind of where it evolved. And when I was really young as well, my uncle collected brewery paraphernalia. And there's the Ontario paraphernalia collectors called Breweriana, I believe it's called. Breweriana? Yeah, Breweriana. One of the guys from Great Lakes is a part of it. And my uncle was like member like 14 or something. There's like thousands and thousands of collectors now, but he was like member 14 in like 1970s and had this crazy collection of beer. So for some reason, it's just like, I loved it, you know, and kind of obsessed with like growing up and like wanted to do something like that. I was just like, thought beer was cool. And then when I was like 10 years old, I started to write to beer companies and ask for labels. And I actually have like still on my wall was that Labatt. That's all Labatt from like 1996, all framed up. And my mom would like frame them up for me when like on birthdays and stuff. And it's like everyone comes in like, why the fuck you got like Molson Labatt's on the wall? I'll be like, because I was 10. I was 10 years old when I got that. Like frig off. So yeah, it was just always there. I always loved it. And then in marketing, when I went to school for marketing, that's when I realized I didn't want to do marketing. I love the creative side of it. I love the, you know, advertising side of things, the campaigns and those things, but like selling to someone for no reason, you know, or like, you need this, like convincing people was just so dirty to me. And I was like, no, you know what? Beer sounds pretty cool. And it is, you know, it's pretty dope. It's
not a hard sell usually.
Yeah. People know they want it when they come in, you know. I don't be like, you need this minivan. Be like, no. There's 10 cars on the menu. You pick whatever you want, you know, and have a good time while you're here. But that's kind of where it came from. And to this day, still like culinary is number one. And that's how I still approach brewing, which I think is like one of the main educating points that lacks in this industry is like, we focus on the math, we focus on the science. No one really focuses on the ingredients. We do a lot of pairing courses, right? Like in the brewing course, you do tasting program, you go through an entire tasting thing, you become like a certified judge apparently, or sorry, officially, not apparently. But at the same time, they don't tell you about the ingredients. They don't tell you how to use the ingredients, you know, like cinnamon in a stout, nutmeg in a stout. Those things accentuate over time. They continuously get stronger. So how are you going to plan for that 4 weeks from now? You know, how much is too much? And that's when like you try some of my stouts, some of my pastry things, and the wine hybrids, the IPAs, like those things taste like one idea, you know, like they can be very complex or very simplistic, but at the same time, it's coming from a culinary standpoint. I've had a lot of other friends and brewers say I'm like a fifth ingredient brewer, you know, like you're using, you know, your grains, your water, your hops, and your yeast. What else can you add? What can you create from that? You know, like there's a lot of citrus-like flavors from hops. Why also not use citrus? You know, why not use things that have the same oils, have the same flavors, have the same compounds? And I think that one thing for me right now, the most exciting is the cannabis industry with the scientific output of like terpene oils. So like terpenes are oils that are found in hops, but they're also found in cannabis because of the same plant, or the same sister plants, right? Like they're both cannabis plants, and we can extract these flavors and start to combine them. And there's a lot more research coming out from that too. So I think like, yeah, just research and culinary. I should have just said that. Culinary. Making food is how I got into it.
That was a better way to get to that answer though.
That's way better.
Sorry.
I had a beer, you know, whatever.
That's great.
That was very beautiful, Aaron. I preferred that.
Thanks,
version.
man. Thank you.
Very nice.
I try and get like a little esoteric kind of poetic going on. You know, it sounds stupid sometimes, but sometimes it flows, I guess.
No, like your passion. No, your passion. It's so clear that you have such a natural ingrained love of what you do. So I wanted to explore that, and you expressed yourself very elegantly.
Thanks.
Passionately, one might say.
Oh, thank you.
Maybe even passionately. Well, Aaron, believe it or not, that's been an hour, so I think that's kind of a good place to stop. But we would love to have you on again, maybe sometime later in the year, just to discuss more, because I feel like we've barely scratched the surface on on your experience and everything to do with Merit and Hamilton, and we'd love to chat with you some more. So maybe would you come on again at some point?
Oh, anytime. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well,
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
maybe Garrett and I will stop by soon. I know Garrett's closer than I am, living in
Well,
Hamilton.
next time I'm in, I'll see if you're around. Give you a
Yeah,
shout.
yeah. Or just send me a message and pop in the back there. We can have a beer or something, do a social distance on the patio and
Amazing.
minus temperatures or something,
Hey, that works for me. Bundle
on.
up. Sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Amazing.
usually there like Monday to Friday lately, trying to really, especially over COVID, just like enjoy some time,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes
Yeah.
repetitious, right? So yeah, I'm usually there. So if you're around Monday to Friday, give me a shout and I'll have a pint or something.
Yeah, that sounds great. Definitely let you know.
Amazing. All right, Aaron Spinney, Merit Brewing in Hamilton, Ontario. Aaron, thank you so much for the time and look forward to chatting with you again.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was really fun.
Thanks, Aaron.
Cheers, Aaron.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all our interviews and beer-related content. Remember, craft beer is here.